Nothing makes me happier than when someone has that aha moment and realizes that they've got the right muscles working. The reason I get so excited is because it isn't easy for many of us to change those recruitment patterns. Now, I've been a clinical exercise physiologist for many years now, and I still get a kick out of watching it click for someone. Their whole world changes in that moment, and the floodgates of what is possible to achieve swing wide open. Why your knees need activation exercises. So whether it was through injury, nerve damage, inactivity, poor movement patterning, or another cause, some particular muscles will try to help weaker muscles by trying to do the work for them. Now, it sounds good in theory, but it's really not great in practice over the long term. The muscles that should be doing the work think they're on holiday, and they become less and less active as time goes on. Now, this causes your brain to rewire your nervous system, weakening the connections to the lesser used muscles while increasing the strength of the neural pathways and patterns to those muscles who are trying to help, right? Ever heard the saying, use it or lose it? That's exactly what I'm talking about here. If those pathways aren't fired regularly, they're moved, they're remodeled, and they're less likely to be used. Look, even people with pain-free knees struggle performing many movements correctly. But if you add in pain and discomfort into the mix, you quickly find out that it isn't easy to A, realize that the right muscles aren't working when they should be, and B, to then go and put in the work and the focus to get the right muscles working. The next part of your DIY knee revival program is a section called activation exercises. Now, I'm going to explain what they are and why they're in there. Now, how is it that some exercises look like they're being performed correctly, but are actually causing more problems? It's not enough to just do the movement, you've also got to get your grey matter involved. Now, it's not a matter of mind over muscle, but rather mind into muscle. Research has shown that focusing on a muscle and or visualizing it contract can improve activation, recruitment, and your motor control. So if you concentrate really hard on your glutes when you're doing a single leg bridge, for example, you're better able to replicate the sensation of the intense glute contraction and make a deadlift way more effective. Now, remember from the mobility video that a deadlift is not just something you do in a gym, it's you picking up your groceries, your bagged groceries off the ground at home and at the shop. So this applies to all of you guys. This neuromuscular training and getting your body to do exactly what your brain tells it to will eventually become an unconscious pattern that your muscles automatically follow. But for now, it's going to take practice. And it isn't just about doing the right moves, because that exercise that you're doing may look right, but you may be using the wrong muscles to make it happen. What we really want is to change the way our body recruits muscles to perform those movements. So it's about establishing that mind-body connection that we've heard about so much. And that is why your activation exercises are so important. So how does it actually work? In the mobility video I did before, I talked about how we spend so much time in poor static positions, including in front of the computer, the TV, or your phone. Our body gets tight and it lacks the optimal range of motion and adequate activation of specific muscle groups. Using activation exercises is a technique that involves turning on a target muscle with an isolation or a conditioning exercise before the main lift or the activity that you're going to be doing. So a lot of muscles can become lazy or shut down, usually because of improper mechanics or lifestyle trends like sitting a lot during the day in your office desk job or something like that. The inactivity of some of these muscles means that other muscles have to take over, and as a result, you're reducing the effectiveness of the exercise, you're creating a poor movement pattern, and you're really putting yourself at risk for injury if you haven't already got one. Now, dive into any activity or workout with a limited range of motion, and your assistance muscles will start to compensate. Now, because these assistance muscles are typically smaller and they're typically weaker, forcing them to handle excessive torque is a recipe for pain and injury. What's worse is that if your exercises aren't activating the primary muscles because you can't physically achieve the full range of motion, you can't build the muscle, you can't get faster, or you can't achieve a lot of the results that you're working so damn hard towards. You're spinning your wheels, you're mistaking movement for momentum. It's not good. The key aim of getting you to do your pre-activation exercises is to wake up and engage the proper muscles without pre-fatiguing them too much, which can make them less active. In order to prime your neuromuscular system to turn on those fibers without completely burning them out, pre-activation exercises have to be done at either a light to moderate intensity or at a high intensity for just a few reps. You can leave that part to me. I've got the programming done there for you. You just need to follow it. Now, movements that in general allow for less compensation because fewer muscles are working at the same time are great. Movements that may even help you to inhibit overactive muscles if you make sure you're in the right position. But it isn't just the movements that lead to activation and changes in our mind-body connection. It's also when we do these movements. So when do you do your activation exercises? Now, I get asked all the time about when to do the activation exercises. And now, because we're fixing your knee pain, you want to do them right before your repatterning exercises to get the most out of them. And sometimes even during your workout if you're struggling to feel those muscles engaging. Now, which muscles am I talking about? I've noted down what you should be feeling and what you shouldn't be feeling and where you should be feeling it with each exercise, so you can't go too wrong. The activation exercises that I've put in there establish the mind-body connection in an easy way. Because they're more isolated movements, they can make it easier for you to think about the muscles that are working, and they'll eventually start to create a bit of a pumped feeling in those muscles. That's when you know you've got it right. Now, all of this is interesting and all, but muscles don't operate in isolation in everyday life. What we need to do is use that connection that you've just created with the activation exercises to then help us improve our recruitment patterns during compound movements with heavier loads or faster speeds. Basically, we want to make sure that the right muscles are carrying the loads that they should be and other guys aren't coming in to try and help that out. We really want to establish that mind-body connection prior to movements where it's often harder for us to think about or focus on the muscles that are working. Those bigger compound movements I'm talking about, like your squats, your deadlifts, really big movements where there's so many things going on, your body's feeling things everywhere. You just need to concentrate on the main things, and they're all written down there in there for you. By doing your activation prior and creating that initial pump and connection, we can make it easier to know the muscles are working during those other moves. Because if we want to be moving efficiently, we can't have to consciously think about all the muscles that are working every time. We need to know they'll be recruited correctly because we've taken the time to activate and create efficient and effective recruitment patterns. So guys, when it comes to activation, moves are a tool and timing is a tool. But really it comes down to you focusing and thinking about the muscles that are working as you do those activation exercises so you can get the right muscles working during your repatterning and compound exercises. With all of this in mind, it seems more complicated than it really is. All you need to do is follow the order that I've set, which includes your pre-activation moves into your warm-up before the main repatterning exercises. So don't rush, and instead I just want you to focus on the entire contraction, positive and negative, up and down, with your brain and your body working together. Last thing to remember, guys, the man who moves a mountain begins by carrying away small stones. You've already moved a handful, so stick with it because getting your knees back is going to be so worth it.